Good morning. Wow, it's so dark today. Very gray day here. Change of season. Um, Interesting times we live in, isn't it? Well, here in Hong Kong, the cinemas are still open. So we are getting some films, but it's been interesting. It's been interesting because you probably are aware a lot of movies from Hollywood are being pulled. The other day, Lionsgate pulled Antebellum, the new Janelle Monáe thriller, from its schedule. It was supposed to open in the U.S. Next week and supposed to open here in Hong Kong on April 30th. Now we don't know. Also, Chris Rock's Saw, the reboot of Saw. Don't know what's happening with that one. Sarah Paulson's Run. Don't know what's happening with that one. Disney announced the other day that Black Widow, not surprisingly, off the calendar. No date for it to come. It was supposed to be released here on April the 30th as well. So we don't know what's happening. So with all these changes going on, it's put pressure on the Hong Kong distributors to try to find other films to put on the screen. And they are turning to, I'm happy to say they're turning to indie films. I saw a promo the other day for The Peanut Butter Falcon, the Shia LaBeouf film, which I reviewed a few months ago. Really good film, by the way. I'll probably review it again when it comes. I don't know when it's coming to Hong Kong to the cinemas, but it is coming. But it is available on streaming services. So if you're sitting at home, you want to look for a film to watch, a good film, that's actually a good one to watch. Who knew Shia LaBeouf could act? But yeah, so that's what's happening here in Hong Kong. So this week there are a few new films. Not a lot of competition. A couple of films from one film from Taiwan, which I'll talk about in a second. Another film from Thailand. One from Korea. I haven't seen either of those, so I'm not going to talk about them. And an American film, which very very controversial, and yeah, I'll talk about that one second. So first up is the Taiwanese film called the very long title, the Gangs, the Oscars, and the Walking Dead, which is pretty much what the film's about. It's about gangs, Oscars, and Walking Dead. So the story is we have a fellow by the name of BS, who doesn't give BS apparently. He's played by Taiwanese actor Roy Chu, and he's a producer, or he's a producer wannabe, let's put it this way. And his longtime friend Wen Shi, played by Huang Diyang, he's a wannabe director. They have dreams of making it big in the movie industry. And the pair has been working together for years, but they've never been successful. And now they're deep in debt, so to get by, they work for the Triads, filming their weddings and funerals. And it's after one such film shoot, which goes terribly wrong, that mob boss Brother Long, played by Lung Xiaohua, he makes them an offer that they can't refuse. And the offer is he'll bankroll their next production, which is a schoolgirl / zombie film, as long as they agree to two conditions. The first one is that part of the film must be shot in Japan, and the second is the film must star Long's crazy-ass girlfriend, Shani, played by 11, that's the name she chose for herself, 11 Yao E.T., E.T., 11 Yao E.T., let's just call her 11, and desperate to get out of debt to make their film, they agree to Brother Long's conditions, but things go terribly wrong again, even before the cameras start rolling. And the guys know that if they don't improvise on the fly, their film isn't the only thing that will end up in the dump. We're swimming with the fishes, or whatever euphemism you want to use. So this film is directed by a fellow by the name of Gao Pinchuan. I think it's Chuan, Gao Pinchuan. He did a film a few years ago, which I didn't see, called The Soul of Bread. It was a rom-com, so this is a very different film. He said that this film, by writers Bernie Fong and Chai Yi-ho, there's Miss Chai and Mr. Fong, that was initially conceived as a one-page joke. And that much is quite evident, as the laughs in this film are few and far between. So to make up for a weak script, and it's a very weak script, Gao tears a page from Quentin Tarantino's handbook and makes generous use of expository flashbacks and absurd violence, like a Mexican standoff. Now, sometimes it works, but mostly it doesn't. And that's mainly because there's no chemistry between these two lead actors that would cause us and the audience to care about their fate. 20 minutes into the film, I'm like, yeah, kill them already. It's like, I don't care. Didn't really, find, you can make a film about an unredeeming character. There's lots of films like that out there. Taxi Driver, Joker. But you know what? There's something about them that you care about. These guys, you don't care. Now, perhaps Gao, the director, he recognized this weakness of the film, of the script, and he relied too heavily on 11 Yao's campy performance for cheap laughs. Now, to me, this film would have been more effective if it were a dark comedy. It is a dark comedy, but it's a lot of slapstick too. I think he should have played the film straight and let the audience figure it out rather than making it so blatant. So, that being said, it's not a horrible film. It's just not very good. And you know what? The film even picked up 2 nominations at last year's Golden Horse Awards. I mean, that's not a great big accolade, but, for local films, it is. What I did like about the film is that the Brother Long, veteran actor Long, to me, I liked him. He was the best part of the film because the guy's got so much experience. He's been around for years. And I thought, okay, he was good, even though his character has to do things that stretch the bounds of believability. But I thought as an actor, as a performer, I liked him. The story's premise is good, but I think first of all, it needed a better script. But even if it had this script, I think it needed a more experienced director to make it a much better film than what it is. So, you know what? If you're living in this part of the region, this part of the world where the cinemas are still open, if you're desperate to go to the cinema this week, I'd say go see this film. If you're not desperate to go see this film, or to go to the cinema, I'd say you can safely skip this film and sleep well at night. Not a great film, but not horrible either. Just it's like very middle of the road. So that's called The Gangs, The Oscars, and The Walking Dead. Now, the next film, which I think, if you're living in this part of the world and you're looking to go to the cinema, I think this one might be your ticket. And it's called The Hunt. Not like the Danish film Jagten, which in English was called The Hunt, which was a fabulous film. I reviewed it a few years ago. That's another film. If you're stuck at home and you need a film to watch The Hunt. But make sure it's the one from a few years ago, the Danish film, rather than this one, which I'm about to talk about. Well, you can watch this one too, but definitely you should watch the Danish film called The Hunt, or Jagten, Jagten. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. Excellent film. Okay, so now we have The Hunt 2020 or 2019, because the film was supposed to come out in the States last September, I think it was, but back in August, if I remember my timeline correctly, the Universal Pictures had started to promote the film, or maybe they were about to promote the film, and then there were a couple of mass shootings in the States, so they stopped the promotion, and then 2 days later, a certain very stable genius in America tweeted, what did he tweet? That he felt that the film was, quote, intended to inflame and cause chaos. So then with that, they decided, Universal Pictures decided to pull the film and shelve it for a few months. It opened last week in the States. It's opened yesterday here in Hong Kong. But guess what? Today, Friday, March 20th, it is moving in America. It is moving to online rental. So if you're in America and you do want to watch this, you do not need, as of today, you do not need to go to the cinema. You can go to something like iTunes, I believe, or Amazon Prime, and rent it. I think it's like $19.99 US to rent for 48 hours, something like that. So yeah, you don't have to go to the cinema to see it. But here in Hong Kong, we have it in the cinemas. Now, The Hunt tells the story of 12 strangers who wake up to find out that they've been chosen to be hunted for sport by a group of wealthy elites. And the strangers all come from, well, let's say most of them, not all of them, most of them come from American states that voted for that aforementioned very stable genius, whose name is not mentioned in the film, by the way. But, we all know who, when they refer to a president, that we know which president they're referring to. Now, as both these strangers, and we come to learn, they weren't just picked because of where they live. They were picked because of their outspoken conservative views. Now, the game starts off swimmingly well for the elites, but it soon goes very pear-shaped when Crystal, played by Betty Gilpin, people would know her from the TV show Glow, about the, what is it, the wrestlers or the roller girls? I've never seen the TV show, so I don't know. But I do know her from Nurse Jackie. So she was in the final, I think the last 3 seasons of Nurse Jackie. She didn't start off in this series, but she was there towards the last half. So she plays Crystal, and she's one of the hunted, and she decides she's going to fight back. She's not going down without a fight. Now, need it be said that very stable genius doesn't know what he's talking about? Of course he doesn't. He just loves to tweet. And with his fat little fingers. Now, had he seen the film before he opened his mouth or opened his Twitter account, he would have realized that the hunt is not as one-sided as he thinks it is. The story by Damon Lindelof and Nick Cuse, these are the guys who do the TV show Watchmen, and I think Lindelof and maybe Cuse even were involved in the TV show Lost. I think Lindelof did Lost. The story takes more than a few swipes at both sides, at both the blue and the red teams. I didn't keep score, but I'd even go so far as saying the Reds come out ahead in the end. So you know what, Mr. Stable Genius? Shut your stupid mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. But we know that about you already, but you just love to shoot off your mouth. The film, though, is an absolute hoot, provided you know about the current state of American politics. If the concept of red and blue is a mystery to you, don't bother watching this film because you won't understand the humor. At my press screening the other day, I'm going to take a swig of coffee here. At my press screening the other day, my colleagues who were Mexican, well, he's not a colleague, he's a friend, I brought him along, a Brit and a fellow Canadian, we were the only ones laughing. The locals just didn't get it because they're not up on the concept of red and blue. Well, the colors, but not as it pertains to American politics. Now, you can still, if you don't know the issues, you can still watch the film and possibly find pleasure in seeing people getting killed in the most gruesome of ways. Quite hysterical, quite good. But the put-downs really are the best part of the film. Unfortunately, as wickedly enjoyable as this film is, it suffers from a lack of subtlety. To me, I think this is the weakness of the film. I think it tries to be smarter than it is, and it's too blatant. I think that Universal is pitching it as to be, sort of in the vein of Get Out and Us, these social comedy horror thrillers. But, with those films, when the lights came up, you were sitting there and you're analyzing. You're saying, well, what does that mean? What does this mean? This film, you know exactly what it means. You don't need to analyze it at all. And to me, this is a weakness of the film. Still enjoyed it, but to me, it was too blunt. It was too much in your face. So I think audiences, specifically the ones who understand the humor, they'll get the message that both sides aren't as different as they think they are. But sadly, the world today is full of political leaders who seek to divide rather than unite. Now, as for the performances, it's funny, like every depending on what's happening out there, it gets very dark here, very light. The performances, Gilpin is fabulous as Crystal. She's a modern day Sarah Connor from the Terminator series. From the film's outset, you quickly understand that she's someone you don't want to mess around with. But neither is Athena, who's played by 2-time Oscar winner Hilary Swank. people would know her. She won an Oscar for Million Dollar Baby. One of her Oscars, she was most recently in Logan Lucky. Now, she's the mastermind who's behind this deadly game. And the two of them, if you've seen the trailer, you see that the two of them do meet up at the end of the film. Now, the film also features a number of familiar faces from TV, including Glenn Howerton, who's one of the stars of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Ike Barinholtz, people would know him from The Mindy Project, Emma Roberts, who's Eric Roberts' daughter, Julia Roberts' niece from American Horror Story, Justin Hartley from the TV show This Is Us, and Ethan Suplee from My Name Is Earl. It was funny, I saw he was in the news just a few weeks ago that he's been exercising like crazy, pumping iron, and he's like this big buff guy. So he was, I realized who when I saw him in this movie. I said, that's Ethan Suplee. Had I not seen that article a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have recognized him because he looks very different from his days from My Name Is Earl. But now, even though you have all these big TV stars in the film, relative fame doesn't carry much weight here, as eventually everyone gets caught in someone else's crosshairs. And I'm not going to say who's, where's, and what's, but they're all meeting up at some point. All in all, The Hunt is a welcome respite from this daily dose of despair that we all seem to be getting lately. If your cinemas are still open, to me, it's worth making the trek to see it there, as long as you're wearing a face mask when you do. If not, then definitely check it out online, starting today in the U.S. Definitely in the U.S. and Canada, probably here too. I don't know where you can see it, but definitely U.S. and Canada. That's called The Hunt. And also watch the Danish The Hunt. Different film, but same name. That's it for today. I honestly don't know what I'm talking about next week because they haven't decided. But I think I know, but I'm not going to say because things change between now and then. So have a good week. Have a good weekend. Please be careful if you're going out. Wear a mask or maintain your distance. Wash your hands for 20 seconds each and every time you come in from being outside. And don't touch your face unless your hands are washed. You know all that. But do it. Take care. Why am I not closing?